welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Richey of the MHRT Network. Over that away is DZ representing his Los Angeles Chargers. And down below, Monsieur Jacques Guénin representing the Las Vegas Raiders. All right, guys, we got an interesting show for everyone today. We're going to be kind of discussing a rather unique topic. And I think it's a good one, though, because all of our teams have, those few players, a dusting, if you will, who are, on those one-year deals or in the final year of their contract, or perhaps even those that didn't have their fifth year picked up on their contracts that are, on the cusp, if you will. Every team has those guys where we all know as fanalists that one way or another, they either are going to step up or they're going to ship out. And those are the players that we're going to talk about today on each of our teams. So in the chat, if you have players that you think fit that mold on your team, I want to hear those names and I want them clickety-clack right down below. But before we get into any other chitter-chatter, I want all of you to click that like button. That's the thing that looks kind of like my hand right there down below. And if you have not already, and you are watching this either during the podcast or after the fact, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on both channels, both the MHRT Network as well as Captain Jack channel, so we can reach you each and every week when we go live and have a good old time here on the Wild Wild West podcast. With that in mind, DZ, what are your thoughts?
Ooh, are we going to start right now? Make or break players for the Los Angeles Chargers? Is that where it's going?
Well, I mean, we have Hero here, who is
aka Piano Man.
Who's super excited about your offensive line for the Chargers, which seems to be one of his comments there.
He's a little more optimistic than I am, but I like it. I love it.
And I think it'll be really interesting to kind of see what happens there. So maybe
Matt Marinovich put up a good player, even though it's not on my team, it's on Jack's team. Tyree Wilson. That's a solid pick right there.
Yep, Matt. That's actually the first one I'm going to talk about, bro.
Yeah. So we'll maybe start with you, DZ, just to kind of go over some stuff there. And if we can get names in the chat for DZ on his team and folks that you think on the Chargers that are on that, ship up or shape out, let's get those names in the chat. But DZ, time to lead us off.
Well, I've got, we discussed prior to the show, we're going to do usually two players on each side of the ball. And I've got two players on each side of the ball. I've got some honorable mentions we can talk about later on, but I think first and foremost on the offensive side of the ball, there's two players that stand out. Hero, kind of mentioned one, and but I'm not going to talk about him right now. I'm going to talk about Zion Johnson. Zion Johnson was, a 2022 first-round pick at 17th overall. This guy went from right guard to left guard last year, and now they're trying to make him the center. They're having him compete with Bradley Bozeman for that future center spot, which if it works out, I will be head over heels. I will be ecstatic if it works out, because this guy is built like he's a 6'3", 316-pound guy from out of Boston College. There's pictures of him kind of like what the Raiders had last offseason with some of their players that I believe it was Zeus and Tyree and all those guys that were working out, and they all look jacked. This is Zion. Zion is a massive human. He's got arms that are like legs on him, but it's no secret, man. This guy has struggled on the offensive line. Now, whether that be due to his partners where he's been on that line, or is it something between the ears? And it's hard for me to think that it's something between his ears, because I think the guy's a computer science major or something. So it's not like he's a dummy. This guy has shown flashes through his 48 starts that he's had in the career. but the Chargers didn't pick up his 5th-year option. Now, I hate using these stats, but this is how we get through to fans because it's really the only thing that the majority of fanalists or fans understand. It's PFF's rankings. And believe me, I'm not a fan, especially in the offensive line, using their rankings because I think they're right, Richie. I think their rankings work for other stuff, but it's kind of hard to judge offensive line. But, they had Zion ranked, 47th out of 136 guards. Another source had him at a higher. So it's like, this is where I kind of bounced. I was doing some research on it, and another source had him at a higher ranking than what PFF had him at. But look, I watch the games, right? Especially me being a Chargers fan, a diehard Chargers fan since I was a little child. I paid attention because I knew, like, okay, watch where Zion's at, watch where the center's at. These are weak spots on this team. So I watched what he did, and especially in that playoff game, it was pretty horrendous, But this guy, look, if he doesn't take the center spot this season and goes back to his position he played last year, we're essentially running out the same offensive line minus Mekhi Becton, the addition, huge addition, massive human being on the right guard, which will make that right-hand side that much stronger, which I'm all about. But that still leaves that left-hand side susceptible to stunts, and especially in pass blocking. If your name, let's see, Matt, I don't know. I didn't hear what he said. If your name comes up in the O-line, you're doing something wrong. I 100% agree, Matt. I think people should talk about offensive line more. As I've gotten older, I have really started to appreciate offensive line. I think the last week I was wearing or 2 weeks ago, or did I wear it, a Slater jersey? Huge fan of offensive line. I think they should get more love. Salute Marcus. But as a Broncos fan, Richie, one of the worst games he had was against the Broncos last season with that speed and the stunts with Zion Johnson. So, another game, the Steelers. So this guy, he's gotta find it this season. If he doesn't, I think he gets shipped out of LA, and it sucks because he's got all the freaking tools. He's got the size, the strength. He's got, the pedigree. It's just, have they had him bounce too much? Because the left guard is his true spot. When they drafted him, they had him play right guard 2 seasons ago. Then he moved to left guard last season. And then, is it have something to do with the center? And that very might well be an issue, is our center. And all of the Chargers fan base know that our center play last year was not at the level it needs to be. Now, heading into the season, we'll see with this, quote unquote revamped running game, and this is going to be their strength. So, if they're running more, they're not having to be on their heels as much. Maybe that will benefit, Zion's play and the center's play and Bradley Bozeman. So we'll see. But that's my first player, Richie. I don't know if you want me to name off other players, or if you guys want to go around and give out some players, or how do you want to do that, Rich?
Let's do both of your offensive
Sure.
guys, and then
Okay.
just kind of maybe if you have like an honorable mention or so, maybe just toss them out there too, and then we'll kind of do a little bit of a roundtable and discuss both of the guys you bring up.
Sure. Okay. Cool. Well, this next player is not going to be a surprise to, I guess, most fans, even of the Raiders, the Broncos, the Chiefs, whoever. Is Quentin Johnson, man. This guy was drafted 21st overall, over guys like Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison, which haunt Chargers fans today, to this day. Like, we're just like, we could have had these other guys. He had a really rough rookie season, man. Really rough. it was almost hard to watch, and you started feeling bad for the guy. He had a better sophomore season last season. But the thing is, his problem is he's not consistent at all. I think he had 3 games all of last season where he went over 60 yards. And another issue is in those big moments where you need to catch the ball, he doesn't catch the ball. I mean, his best game was against Jack's Raiders, and it was like this game. It was a fluke game. It was like 13 catches, 186 yards. And then after that, I think the next game, zip nada, But he had 55 receptions for 62nd out of all receivers last year. He had 711 receiving yards, 48th out of all receivers. He had 8 touchdowns, and that was tied for 13th. So that's pretty decent. That's pretty good in the league. Now his yak, yards after catch, guys. He was 96th with 12.9. This is why he was drafted. He was drafted to be this, I believe, by Tom Telesco, was drafted to be that prototypical X receiver and be that yak threat. Well, he's not working out as an X, and obviously he wasn't working out with that yak last season. That was important. I believe like PFF, here we go, 54th out of 98. For a first round guy, that's just not good, man. This is not up to par where you need to be. Now he has shown some growth, and there is some stuff going on this season where I think he can be put in a better position to succeed. And that's getting him out of the X position, getting him out of the slot, and having him go into that Z position, a flanker role. And that's kind of guys that are more like a Tyreek Hill or even like a Cooper Kupp. But he's got the speed. He can do that flanker. And if they can kind of see if that works with him, I could see that in a spot where he can succeed is in that prototypical Z. And if he doesn't, I mean, there's other guys. They drafted 2 receivers in this draft. You guys know. We've talked about the offense that's got the offensive talent that got poured into this team this offseason. But and another thing about going to the Z, this guy can avoid press coverage. Another thing that he's not been really good at. So I think that's where as a fan, I'd love to see him in that spot as a Z, and that could probably help him because, we got him this season, we got him next season. I highly doubt, unless this guy takes off this season, they pick him up. They pick up his 5th-year option. The Chargers fans, we're waiting for Trey Harris. They brought back Mike Williams. Let's see. Does the Charger guy on the panel think that they can win the division here? I've heard opinions from you. I can't. There's a Charger guy. Thanks, Edward. DZ here, buddy. I don't know. I think that's our goal. That's my goal. I hear a lot of fans on social media are like Super Bowl baby, every year. But my whole goal is to win the division first and foremost. It's win the division because we haven't won the division in Christ, I don't know how long, but I think the Chiefs have had a stranglehold on this for 9 seasons or whatever it is, something ridiculous. And so,
I think we're all tired of that. That's for sure.
Yeah, we're all tired of seeing, Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, Kermit the Frog. Sorry, Chief fans. The whole ref bias. It's time for somebody to, dethrone them, take them off the top of the mountain. 7, thanks, Edward. It feels like 9, but it's the division, man. So if this is the year to do it, to be honest with you, I think it's either the Broncos or Chargers that can do it, and that's no slight on the Raiders. I think the Raiders need to work more with their defense. But I think we said this 2 years ago. I think we said this last year. You know, when I was just a fan commenting, watching the Wild Wild West podcast. You know, we always expected, oh, this is the year to take them out, and you know they limp into the Super Bowl this year. Obviously, it looked pretty piss poor against the loaded Eagles team, but you can never count them out, man. Can never count them out. That was a long answer. Apologize. So yeah, Zion Johnson and QJ, man, those are the two on the offensive side that they didn't make or break it, and you know, one of them is really important, but there's other guys chomping at the bit that they drafted. They drafted a tackle that they want to transition to guard. So there's guys like that we need to. Those are my two big guys on the offensive side.
Question for you on QJ in particular.
Sure.
He's an interesting cat. He had like a couple games where he looked good, and he's shown like a couple of flashes here and there, but by and large, positionally, as in where he was drafted, he's certainly leaning more into a bust prospect rather than a prospect that would be fair to call him a solid draft pick. I think that's fair. Like, I'm not trying to, belittle the Chargers fan base at all.
17th overall, Richie. You're right, man.
And so, I mean, at some point, I guess the question I'm going to ask here is, do you think you're better off straight up trying to trade him to see if a change in scenery makes sense? Or do you think that he's just going to have to be a straight cut candidate?
Well, I don't think he gets cut this season. I think the coaches really love him, and they're really pushing for him to be a starter. He's out there with all the ones, throughout camp, the OTAs. He's been with the ones. They love him. They're rooting for him. There's something about the staff. They love this first round pick pedigree, because there's another guy, Jalen Rager, who was a first-round pick by the Eagles a few seasons ago, who hasn't done anything. Well, they re-signed him this year, and they brought him back, and we're all like, why bring this guy back? He hasn't done anything. So there's something within this staff that they like this first-round pick pedigree. They think they can get something out of him, and I don't think he has a trade value, Richie, at all. Like, what are we going to get? Maybe send him to Carolina or somewhere that needs him, but he might have something going on here. And I mentioned this in a Charter space and kind of got some flack for it. I said, I think this guy should be seeing a sports psychologist. I really do. And I think somebody took it the wrong way, but I think that a sports psychologist does well for these guys, especially like these prototypical wide receivers. I mean, it's a high stress, very alpha dominated role in the league. So I think he might have something going on in his head, because look, he was pretty electric at TCU, and we've seen flashes, but I mentioned earlier, consistency is key, and we have 17 games, and he hung out Justin to dry quite a few times last season and the year before, obviously, with his rough rookie start.
I actually think that he has a couple things. One, I agree. I think he might have some, I'm not saying he's got mental challenges. I think that's going to be
not at all
interpreted incorrectly when I say it. But I think that there's a heavy mental part of the game. And if you keep making mistakes, eventually you can't get out of your own way. And I think being fed some tools with some professionals may help someone like that. So I think there's some, certainly validity to what you just said. But the other thing that I will push back on TCU and his production and everything else, in college, you can get away with being a body catcher.
Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you for bringing that up.
In college, you can get away with being that body catcher. And for the benefit of all of you in the chat, by the way, thank you for joining us this evening. Yeah. But for the benefit of everyone in the chat, a body catcher is not some cryptic, dude that works in a morgue or something like that. It's a term used in the football realm where a wide receiver, when he catches, uses his chest or body in order to physically catch the ball. What you want is, you hear the term, oh, he's got great hands. And it's like, okay, well, that means the dude's catching the ball with his hands, tracking the ball, and then plucking the ball out of the air with his hands. It's those types of wide receivers that you want on your team, because that skill set translates very well to the NFL, because they are able to track, catch, and use their hands to catch, and that works out well.
And that's why you saw me, or you heard me earlier say the Z position and not the slot, because the slot is 4 guys with sure hands that catch everything.
Yes.
The Z,
But it's just so easy as a defensive back just to get your hand between the body and in between the arms. And if you're a body catcher, then you're going to drop almost all of them. That's why it just doesn't translate. To
be honest, I think when he was drafted, in the scheme and the OC and how they were using him, it was almost like he was set up to fail. They're like, they saw his size and everything, and they're like, you're going to be our X. And they had him running, straight down the sideline for over-the-shoulder catches, something he never did at TCU, something we all take for granted as fanalists, thinking that's what every wide receiver should do. And that wasn't his game. His game, it was those short, passes, and it's like, just get the ball in his hands and let the guy do his job, because he's really good with, get him behind the linebackers, kind of like that intermediate, maybe even shallower. And that's why I think, get this guy in the Z, try him out in the Z. If he doesn't work, put him on the bench, man. There's a lot of other dudes on this team, young and hungry, that could probably catch the ball and do a better job than him. Damn his, first round, whatever. Because I'm getting to the point where I'm getting sick of it, man.
Well, that's the whole thing with these first rounders that don't pan out. That's for sure. Then, DZ, also, what year is Zion? Since he's a first rounder, is it his 4th year? Or is it 3rd?
This will be going into his 5th year. So he played, yeah.
So they picked up the option?
No, they did not pick it up.
Okay.
Yeah, that would have been, and there's some stuff I heard from guys who do a little more digging, that have a better explanation of it. I guess there's a reason they didn't pick it up. It's like because of the pay scale for like a guard or something is like crazy high, something to do with the cap. So me saying that he gets shipped off next season, who knows? Maybe he doesn't.
It's also guaranteed.
Yeah, there's that too.
So it's a straight cap hit when you pick up a guy's 5th year option. And so what it turns out is that you don't get to spread that cap hit out over a couple of years. And so unless they're at a true position of value that you're just like, that's fine by me, like an edge guy, for example. So let's say you had a starting edge rusher. You're going to pick up the dude's 5th year option, because the straight cap hit that you're going to get from the averages there is actually going to be probably lower than what his cap hit would be as a straight cap hit if he was brought in on a signed contract.
Sure.
And so you're going to accept that, just as, for example, a left tackle or a right tackle or anyone in that regard. But if you have a dude that is maybe a mid guy in terms of not like an incredible, talent, but a dude that you'd like to maybe bring back, but on a more reasonable deal as like a depth piece for your team, who might be able to show out if he's able to be given enough time, then you don't pick up that 5th year option, but you have that conversation with him to say, in the offseason, we're going to try and bring you back, but we're going to try to bring you back for a contract extension. So don't be, don't be too
it's worthy of what your play is, and not just based on where you're drafted.
Yeah, exactly. So that's often how these teams work. That's often how this stuff works out. And then the other option maybe is that if you really don't want him back, you just kind of say, bye.
The two players I just mentioned, I'm rooting for both of them. Let's be honest. I'm rooting for both of them.
You got to root for everyone on your team. You want everyone to do well.
100% agree, Jack. One, I'm rooting for both of them because I know, being a Chargers fan, you see how they were raised by their families. Like Quentin Johnson was raised in a military household both his parents were both in the military, and then Zion, how he was raised, like he's an intelligent guy. He's just got that. He's built like a freaking Hulk, man. Like I wish I could just put a picture up here or figure out a way, but you guys can just look it up. And you want them to succeed, but it's getting to the point where it's like winning is more important than rooting for you guys. I'll give you guys the rookie year. After that, it's let's go. Like you need to progress. If you're not progressing, it's kick rocks, go some other team. Like Richie was saying, maybe a change of scenery, different coaches, O-line coach, wide receiver coach, what have you. Seems like there's a little war going on in our chat.
And the other thing that I'm kind of surprised that your team
it's normal.
I know, it's great. I don't even have pop. Guys, you can't be having these types of battles in the chat. I didn't pop popcorn today. Okay?
Yeah,
this is not popcorn, right. You got to wait.
Well, we get this. Hey, guys, we get this entertainment on Raider channels almost every show.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Richie.
With regards to Quinn Johnson, what I am surprised that the Chargers have not done. What I'm surprised the Chargers have not done is force him into positions where he must use his hands to catch the ball on a more regular basis. Because to your point, his college coaches did him absolutely no favors by saying, yes, that's acceptable. They basically actually set him back by allowing that to be an accepted norm for him. And then he comes into the NFL and he's got the after catch ability, which is what you said. So those yards after catch, as long as he can catch the ball, he can do stuff with it. Like, it's not like he's incapable.
Sure.
But what your problem is to be quite honest, he's just not catching the ball enough in order to make those plays. Yeah,
well,
exactly.
And so a caveat to that point. A caveat to that point, Richie, I really like the wide receiver coach that Harbaugh brought in last season, Sanjay Law from the Seattle Seahawks. He's a hard-nosed dude, so I think they're, let him get another offseason working with this guy, and let's see what it matters. But I'll tell you, patience is wearing thin, and it has to be with the staff as well.
Absolutely.
I agree.
That's why it's called put up or shut up.
So
there you go.
Let's do right. So guys, how's about this? Let's do the offense roundtable, and then we'll go into the defense roundtable.
Oh, you're killing me.
So
that's not the order I would have had it in my team.
We'll do it that way.
All right. It's not the way I would have had it because I had it kind of ranked, but
like that.
Yeah, well, then
DZ obviously didn't like that. He walked off.
No,
just kidding. So Jack, go ahead. Let's hear your offensive guys on the offensive side of the ball that you have that are in kind of that make or break kind of season bit for them, or even preseason. Because some of these guys, for example, I have a guy here in my list that I think that he might just get straight cut if he doesn't show up in the preseason.
Oh my God, I got so many of these guys, Richie. When you draft 11 players, that means there's 11 less slots that are going to be on your team. And after losing so many defensive players, and then hiring, signing so many 1-year contracts, there's a ton, there's a slew. But before I'll definitely go next. I just want to salute everybody out there. Roshark, what's up, brother? Hey, I got to say, Roshark, I am not Captain Jack. I'm Jack Kennett. We talk all the time in the chats. So salute, brothers. My brother Sacktown Mike, I hang out with him in person. Victory, me and Victory had a great channel last night on a new Broncos channel last night. We talked for probably about an hour. Matt Marinovich, salute and hi on that. And let's see who else we got here.
Broncos channel.
Yeah, it's a new one. It was like their first show. I don't know their names. You got so many.
Nothing Rhymes. Nothing Rhymes. Yeah. They got the new show. Yeah.
Yep, the new show. And you can ask in the chat about Navman, who's in our chat right now, hooked those boys up. And let's see here again, Kona. my boy Kona, when Bill definitely go watch that show too, everybody. Bill and Kona are funny. I love popping into their channel. Marcus Banks, salute, brother. And let's see who else we
salute to
got.
the chat, big time, dude. Raider fans, you guys show up really big. Appreciate it.
We do travel well. Desert Raider, someone I've known for years and years. Ed Winchell, good friend of Captain Jack's. That's on there. Salute. And I think we got everyone. And again, I'm kind of curious. Piano Man, did you come through on Captain Jack's channel or did you go through on Richie's channel? So I'm kind of curious. That Bishop.
He's on MHRT network.
All right, then there you go. That was part of the thing in the chat. So I was just kind of curious because Captain had him blocked on his channel. And again,
that's great. I'm going to be quite blunt. I have zero intentions of ever blocking him.
That's awesome.
Because I
told him to come over here.
Yeah, I have seen absolutely nothing that should be a bannable or kickable offense.
Absolutely not.
So
and that's what I like is
my stance here is grow some thicker skin. If you think some of these comments of his are somehow offensive, just deal with it. Seriously.
And that's why I told Piano Man to come over here so he can, definitely can talk his charge. Just talk football. That's all it is. And everyone gets along. That's all it's about.
Yeah.
And so, I think I got everybody out here. Oh, Jeff, my boy Jeff, salute, brother. Navman, of course, in the chat. Raider Ben, got a lot of my brothers in the chat tonight. So I love this. Love seeing everybody here. Talk to all these guys all the time and all the different shows. So I'm just glad to see everybody here. Wow, God, the chat's going crazy. So yeah, for me, since we're going to start offense, I was kind of planning going from like the biggest one to, which would have been on my defensive side. So, but starting offense, this is a cat that, Zamir White, he's coming into the last year of his rookie contract. So how his career got kicked off was Josh Jacobs went down. And, DZ said this earlier, man, he's just built like a brick house. I mean, physically, a big dude for a running back. But at the same time, for as big as he is fast. The guy's got no vision. So when you try to run him inside, he just can't seem to find the hole or just know how to, pause himself a little bit. It's kind of more of just like one speed. So he came in for Josh Jacobs the last 4 games of the year before Josh left. And he had, 4 100-yard games, but it's at the very end of the season. And they kind of used him, the way he should be used and how he performs well. It's just running to the outside. So if you can't run inside and outside, that really limits what you do. And he's not a fantastic ball catcher. I always believe this, and D said I wanted to say this to you too. Whenever you got a player that, I think 3 years is where the mark has got to be.
I agree.
After 3 years, then you kind of know what is going to be his final year of his contract. So, I looked him up. He didn't even have enough carries because he got hurt last year, but the carries that he got were horrible. We had the worst rated running game in the whole NFL last year. And we were all kind of hoping that he would have taken that next step up, given that he's got the starting role. And he didn't even perform well enough to even keep that job. So this is the last year of his contract. The question will be is if he even makes the team this year. You look at it, if they again next year, no money. If they were to cut him this year, that you're going to take a cap hit of $1,285,000, only a dead cap hit of $186,000, or his cap. I'm sorry, his cap is $1,285,000. You save $1,255,000 by cutting him, and your cap's only $186,000. So right now, that kid is going to have to play for his life because right now he's teetering number 3, but he doesn't offer you any special teams value. What's up, Furpo? He doesn't offer you any special teams value where Lobby is like the guy he's going to be going against. And Lobby's got, punt return, kick return. So he offers you something on special team And of course, he's still on that rookie contract. So with him, with Zamir, I just don't know. It just depends on what Carroll wants. I mean, when you get the number 6 overall draft pick and you get Genty, and then you got the Miami running back who's still he's getting older, but he's still
but
super
nobody's
fast.
talking about him, Jack. That's what's key. That's going to be a really good backup for Genty, man.
I think it's sneaky. And, right now they're talking about moving him to being a 3rd down running back. And then the next guy up is Zamir McCormick right now on the depth chart. So Zeus is going to, we don't want to call him Zeus anymore. As Raider fans, we kind of stopped doing that. When you're not being a Zeus on the field, you're Zamir. So it's just like, it's going to be like, what do the Raiders want to do? Do you want to keep a lobby who's got special teams value? He's not as big. He's not as fast, but he's got better pass catching ability coming out of the backfield, and he offers that special teams value. So, if for Zeus or Zamir, he's got to put it up or shut up because his time is here. It's this year. There ain't no more
Jack,
excuses.
I just heard the sirens in the background. You don't need to go turn yourself in or anything. Everything's fine.
Oh no, they were doing the sirens because they liked what I just said. They're blaring for me.
Fair enough. I just have to check.
I literally live like half a block from a fire station, so that's why you guys heard that. Then the other. Okay, where do I go? So I got it. We're only going to do 2, and then we'll do some honorable mentions. I'm really torn, and on this, I'll just pick one. And then I'll do the other one later on as an honorable mention. And, and that's going to be Dylan Parham. Ooh. And he was slated. Again, it might be a little surprise to some people. Yeah. Because Dylan Parham, he's in the last year of his contract too. So this year he's making $3,883,000 and only a dead cap hit of $227,000. So it's not going to cost you anything if you have to let him go. Currently, he's under the weather. He's got hurt. But here's the thing. It's a 3-way spot. They've originally, when he got drafted, he played center, and he got smoked. I mean, your Chargers kicked his ass that first year he played against you guys. Then they moved him over to left guard. And then last year, they moved him to right guard. And then he got hurt. And he's hurt again. So you got to look at the injury factors for a guy coming into his last year. And when you have the competition of, Meredith, and you got the competition, which is kind of interesting because the starting right tackle in the way of Mumford, now they've been practicing there at left guard. And now Meredith is also starting to practice at center. But his PFF ratings are pretty good. I mean, he was a 74.3. And again, I agree with DZ. It's kind of the horrible thing, but it is kind of like the only thing that's kind of out there. 74.3, 67.5 in the pass blocking game, and which is interesting. He's 75.6 in the run game. When this guy is it's kind of like he's light. The guy came up as a tight end and converted, but he's definitely the smallest guy on the field. So I always worry, like when you get those Chris Jones, those big boys that are out there just kind of pushing them around.
I'm getting PTSD just thinking about it, man. Ooh.
Right? It's like I like those bigger body guys. I mean, he is athletic and he can pull, so he's good for the zone blocking. But again, I talked about wide zone, a little bit, but we'll see how that kind of turns out, with Chip Kelly. But I kind of find it interesting if a Meredith, which you can get a lot cheaper. You also signed 2 offensive linemen this offseason, both in the 3rd round. So when you're drafting 3rd round draft picks, they're going to be on the cheap.
I'm a big fan of Meredith, by the way. Love his play, dude.
I like Meredith too.
But Parham, man, you can't beat versatility. That guy's played 3 different positions for you guys, so that's pretty valuable, especially tackle, both guard spots. Like, it sucks when these guys bounce around, kind of like Zion, man. It's like they do well in others, but they're needed at certain spots. I don't see him taking Meredith's spot. So you guys You think is he slotted in at that other guard spot?
Well, right now, yeah. Well, right now, Kappa is set up at the right guard.
Oh, okay, right guard.
Yeah, so they got him from Tampa, Spytech connection, going over to Cincinnati. Yeah. Had a horrible year. His contract was too big. I mean, he really had a really bad year. So they ended up letting him go. But because the connection with Spytech when he was in Tampa and good, then, you know, that's kind of why they put him in there. And they put him at, you know, starting money. So it's like $5.5 million per year. So Kappa right now is in like OTAs, has been running that position as a starter. And they were again splitting the terms in the way of left guard with Parham and Meredith. And then when Parham went down, then they're starting to also Thayer Mumford, you know, and practicing over there. So that's a 3 kind of headed monster. And then Meredith's kind of slide a little bit more towards center, which I don't really like that idea. I think Meredith is overall better than Parham. But when you're in the last year of that contract, and again, if you're making almost $4 million, is that, you know, and Meredith can do the same job and, you know, cheaper. I just don't know if you want to bring him back. And Meredith's a bigger cat on top of it. So that would be like my 2 guys that I have on the offense where neither one. I mean, I know Parham's going to play this year for sure, 100%. But next year, again, he's on the make or break. He's got to really show that, you know, he can handle that position down in order to stay on his team when you got much cheaper options and bigger dudes doing the same job.
Then why would he make the team automatically then? Why wouldn't he potentially get pushed off if someone else makes him? I
don't think he'll get cut this year. Again, I think they'll play out his contract because again he was listed as a starter over those other 2 guys, but he's hurt again, and I don't really know what the injury is, but it doesn't seem like it's anything big. There hasn't been any big conversation. It's not like Christian Wilkins, you know, who's back in a walking boot or something like that. So he should be good to go before, you know, when training camp starts. So I just think he needs to prove himself. Wilkins, yeah.
Wilkins, the news I saw, he had to go back for another surgery.
That's what I'm hearing. Is that if he does another, he's right now, he's not wanting to do another surgery. He wants to give it like every chance he can to come back. But it's looking more and more. I mean, that's an injury that literally should take like 6 months. And it's been over 9 months, and you go out there and just do some basic drills. There's no contact, and you're back in the walking boot again. That bone just didn't heal. So I think they're going to have to do the whole thing, and I think which will be a huge loss. But I think he will probably be done for the season.
Damn.
And so that's 2 years out of a 3-year contract, if I'm not mistaken.
2 years out of a 4-year, $110 million contract. So that's right. $55 million of what, getting 4 games? You know?
Yeah. Because he went out in the Broncos game.
Can I answer Raider Shield?
Broncos.
Which one? Yeah.
He wants – so Raider Shield, I think it's going to be a true 50-50 split. I think they're going to lean on Najee to kind of like pave the way for the Rook, but I think they ride the hot hand, and my opinion is Omarion Hampton is going to be way more explosive than Najee, but I think they're going to just kind of mimic that Detroit style they have, you know, with their 2 backs with Gibbs and Montgomery. It's Montgomery. It's Gibbs and yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Hey, Matt Marinovich, there you go. Pull a Ronnie Lott, right? Did you go up 1? Oh, there we go. That's why I said pull a Ronnie Lott. You know, he cut off the tip of his finger in a football game because he jammed it so bad. And, you know, they said, hey, you're probably going to have surgery on this. And he's like, no, just cut it off. Let me go back in the game. Jeez. And that's one tough SOB. That's for sure.
Now these guys wear helmet condoms. And if you touch a quarterback too hard, you get fined. Where's our great game going?
Yeah, I very much agree that things are not the way they once were. I mean, I like I said, when I played rugby, we all had a lighter and a knife, like a butter knife, in our bags. That was just standard attire for us, and that was soldering. That was cauterizing rather any open wound, because it was the only thing you were not allowed on the pitch with. If you had an open cut, you were not allowed to play due to like health risks and stuff.
Right.
But if you could cauterize the wound on the pitch right then and there, you were allowed back on. So it was basically standard thing. It was a butane lighter and a butter knife, and you just took care of it then and there and called it a day.
I can smell it now.
And Raider, all my Raider brothers in the chat, if there's anyone else that you think about that, you would put on that make it or break it on the offensive or on the offensive side, not the defensive side, throw it out there. Got a lot of you guys.
Yeah, I like to see Raiders fans bring up offensive players who you think are kind of on the cusp there, on the bubble, that need to really show out or might get cut. And Jack, you have a new regime. You really do. You have a new regime, and it may be that some of the folks that you think won't get cut will, simply because they like the depth guy better and believe that there's more upside there. And so you might get surprised. I mean, again, this is what happens with new regimes, is there's always those 2-3 dudes that you're just like, oh, I didn't see that coming. and they end up bringing in a young guy underneath them that just fits what their scheme was,
Hey, Matt Marinovich, I hope so. And Nav, I agree with you. Actually, that was one I was going to bring up as an honorable mention. I can see that too. So we'll talk about that as well.
So that's the Raiders, 2 guys that you have on your list. I'm going to break into the Broncos list that I have here. And I think I have a couple names on here that people are going to be kind of surprised with. So I'm a line guy, offensive line, defensive line. That's kind of my jam. So DZ, your comments earlier kind of fit into my train of thought, and I've always been a defense and offensive line guy. My number
trenches,
one on
baby.
my all about the trenches. So my number one guy that I have on my list that really needs to kind of step up or ship out, I think, is going to be Alex Forsyth. For those who are not Broncos fans, Alex Forsyth was Bo Nix's center at Oregon. He was the center.
Wait a minute.
That.
Maybe was it before JPJ?
He was before JPJ.
Okay.
And so Alex Forsyth had a bright potential career coming out of the NFL, and then JPJ stepped in for Alex Forsyth after Forsyth left. So Alex Forsyth had all sorts of accolades coming out of Oregon, and then JPJ actually leveled up and was even better than Forsyth as a center there, which is saying something, because Forsyth had some good stats and numbers. He came to the NFL and never really did much. He didn't show that he could, do a whole ton. And frankly, once we drafted Bo, Alex Forsyth was seen to have a bit of an inside track for the center position, and failed miserably. I don't have any kinder words to say. Absolutely blew it. He had the shorthand options with Bo. He had an inside track in some regards, right? And he just did not do well at the center spot. So much so that Wattenberg, who decided to actually learn how to play the center position over the course of the offseason, stepped in and was clearly the better of the two. And Wattenberg, let's just be clear here. Wattenberg's year one may have been the worst center prospect I have ever seen at the position. The dude was hot garbage. And so to see Wattenberg make the steps and leaps forward that he did over the course of the offseason, and then to see that contrast to Forsyth, who really should have made those same, leaps and whatnot, kind of says a lot about work ethic and and coachability and all those sorts of things. And I hate to knock a guy because I want to see him succeed, but the proof is in the pudding, as my grandfather used to say. And
right.
Let's just be real. The proof was showcased on the field, and the guy with the inside track certainly did not do well.
And good thing you didn't have to give up. He was a 7th round draft pick. At least he wasn't drafted higher, so you're hurting on yourself on that pick.
Yeah, I was going to say that as well.
Correct, but I mean the center position is such a critical one for the offensive line, and then also the reason why I think that Forsyth may get the boot, so to speak, is we have Clay Webb, who is looking very good in all of our mini camps and OTAs and whatnot. And so Forsyth has got to really show up if he even wants a chance of making the roster or practice squad for that matter, because Clay Webb is certainly pushing for his position, and that's for sure.
Does he go between both, guard and center? What about doesn't Joe? I can't even pronounce his last name. Michalski?
No, you mean Alex Pachowski?
No, I'm looking at the depth chart right now, and I'm looking at center. It says Joe Michalski on ESPN's depth chart
for the Broncos.
Yeah, this is like
for the Broncos.
Yeah, Joe Michalski.
Oh yeah, that guy's just he's a college free agent. I think you're going to see
camp body.
Clay Webb. I think is going to be. I think Joe Michalski is going to be a camp body. I think your Clay Webb is going to be the dude that you're going to see in that mix for the guard/center role, because you want that interior offensive line as the backup for this year to be able to play both positions, to go across the entire interior. And I think that Clay Webb has that versatility. Alex Forsyth, not so much. And I think that you're going to end up seeing, in my opinion, I think that, after the last preseason game, I think that Forsyth, he could prove me wrong, and that's great. I would love to see it, because the center position for me is the biggest issue I have with my Denver Broncos. Is I want a big, aggressive mauler who is also smart and can kind of control that field at the center position. And I feel that that's just a sore spot for the team right now, and we need to see an improvement there.
So, Rich, you might have already.
I'm no bueno, salute, brother.
You might have already answered this, Rich. So, do you guys have on your roster right now a guy that could take Forsyth's job? Do you think?
Oh yeah, I think that would be Clay Webb.
Okay.
So Forsyth right now is the second center on the depth chart, unless proven otherwise. Luke Wattenberg, basically, it's his job now to lose in the center spot. And so a couple things would actually need to happen. One, in order for Forsyth to maintain himself on the roster, he'd have to take some pretty significant steps forward. And Wattenberg, I think, has shown that he's already taken those steps forward, and there's no reason to believe that he won't perhaps continue to take those steps forward. So then the question is can Forsyth outcompete Clay Webb? I'm not convinced of it.
Okay.
I'm just not. I've heard too many good things from, specifically actually from Sean Payton, about how much he loves Clay Webb. And I think, to me, when Sean Payton generally starts making some kind of vaunted claims about a certain player, it's not often that dude is allowed to leave the building. And so that tells me that Webb is probably here to stay. And realistically speaking, Webb would then likely take over for Alex Forsyth.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
I already know
my
who
number
Rich is going to say
one
next
on my list. Who?
You already know it's probably one of my favorite player on your team.
No, he's an honorable mention of mine.
Okay.
I actually think Cortland Sutton is on that list for me.
Yeah, wow.
And hear me out. This is why. So when you look at the depth chart for wide receiver, we have Pat Bryant, and I'm going to list everyone else but Cortland. Okay?
Is this a business decision?
Pat Bryant,
then,
Marvin.
Is it money?
I'm looking at it from a financial perspective, right? Which is
okay. There you go. Good point.
Going to get yeah. So he is in a contract year where he needs to get re-signed and re-up. So the question is, do you want to re-up him for a 3-year contract at a premium for that position, which is like big time, time money, especially considering you're going to have to pay Bo Nix coming up, because unless he bombs it this year, which I don't foresee happening at all, I think he's actually going to take a step forward. I don't think he's going backwards. I think he's taking a step forward. Then you're at this kind of logjam position where you're going to need to draft a left tackle. You're going to need to probably bring in a right tackle. You're going to have a whole bunch of logjam players. And then you have Benito, who's going to need a big-time contract. And you're going to have John Franklin Myers, as well as somebody else on the interior that you're going to have to pay some big-time dollars as well. So my thought process is we have acquired, and I'm going to list off a few names just for the benefit of everyone in the chat here who may not be as familiar with the Broncos.
Pretty good wide receiver group
chart. We got Pat Bryant drafted this year. We got Marvin Mims Jr. We got Troy Franklin. We got Devon Vele, who absolutely killed it last year. And then we brought in Trent Sherfield, who is a special teams ace at the wide receiver position, who's got a legit shot of making the roster. We still have A.T. Perry and Michael Bandy, who have been pretty quality players, but not amazing players at the NFL level. And this is just another guy that I personally just really like, and I really can't wait to see him play in preseason. And that is Jaquan Davis, who is 6'4", 195 pounds, and runs a 4.3.
Wow.
And so I think you're going to start seeing him show out in the preseason.
It's like a matchstick running at light speed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and to kind of put that in perspective, that is a faster version of like a Tim Patrick, for example, in terms of his frame. And so as long as the dude can catch a ball, run after the catch, and show some great or good body control, and then has a willingness to potentially block and whatnot in the run game, you could, in theory, have like Devon Vele, Jaquan Davis, Pat Bryant, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims as kind of a bit of a core there. And then perhaps as an additional one, you end up with Trent Sherfield, leaving Cortland Sutton as the odd man out. Not because he's not a good or great wide receiver. That's actually not why I'm bringing his name up. He's actually both of those things. And not to mention, he's a great locker room dude. And so that also has to factor into the math on this as well. But Cortland Sutton, just in my opinion, may just be priced out of Denver. It just from a pure dollars
you're talking 2026 for next year, right?
No,
because if they let him go this year, then you're taking $13,320,000 in dead cap. But if you do it next year, then it's only just a little over $7 million.
No. I predict that he would be traded.
Traded, okay.
Which means somebody else. And I think there'd be quite a number of suitors that would be interested in him. And I think you're going to have again an equal number of suitors that would be willing to trade him and give him a new contract, given his production, and not to mention just he's got an incredibly stellar reputation of just being an absolute stand-up guy in the community and in the locker room. So
I've heard that before too.
Like that's just like, look, he's not a guy that I want to see go at all, but look at the big picture from my Denver Broncos and all the other things, and I can see it. Especially
as long as he doesn't go to Kansas City, I'll be fine.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No going to Kansas City.
So he's a guy I actually have at number 2 on my list, just because he's in a contract year. Like, this is literally his contract year where he's and that's a kind of a big deal. And then I have 3 honorable mentions. And I'm going to start with, again, my favorite position on the offensive side of the ball, which is the offensive line. I think Ben Powers should have an honorable mention because he's coming to the back end of his contract. Mike McGlinchey is also coming to the back end of his contract. And then my third honorable mention, Jack, this is specifically for you, is Audric Estime. And I've kind of mentioned his name a bunch of times on the podcast. Again, for the benefit of everyone who's new, I will kind of reiterate why I think he's kind of in that honorable mention category. We brought in RJ Harvey, right?
Stud.
To kind of backfill that.
Richie, let me just pause for 1 second. Something that's really important to Raider Nation and really for everybody. Can you please go down and highlight Raider Mamas? First of all, welcome to the show. I've heard about a lot of your stuff. I know Jeff's been doing fundraising and everything else. So Raider Mama, God bless that your son is out of the hospital. Raider Nation is so happy to hear that, and it's nice to finally meet you. I'm Jack Kenna, and Captain Jack. I on Wednesdays I take over his channel to do the Wild Wild West show. So thank you for being in the chat, and thank you for hearing all the good words. I know Raider Nation, like myself, has been praying for your son. I apologize, Richie, but I just had to get that in. That's just something so important.
Fair enough. I didn't actually see. Fair enough. I didn't actually see that. So I'm glad actually to hear that we have another healthy outcome or positive outcome there as well.
Yeah, man.
The question now is, are we foreseeing a positive recovery process here, or is this going to be a longer recovery process? Either way, hopes and prayers for everyone involved there. And here's hoping things go
T's and
as well as
P's
they
for Raiders
possibly.
Mama, man.
Exactly. I agree. So getting quickly back to just kind of blasting through kind of where I'm at with this, Jack. We brought in J.K. Dobbins. We drafted R.J. Harvey. So you got a 1A and a 1B right there, and that's an immediate, thank you, we're done. Now, the question here is, in my opinion, this is kind of where I'm at with it, and this is why I have Estime kind of on that honorable mention list. He got thrown in the doghouse in favor of Tyler Bidet, and I know my coaching staff really likes Tyler Bidet and his potential. Estime was good but not great. He may or may not have had an injury that was disclosed or undisclosed. Either way, he was benched for Tyler Bidet in the last game. So the question is,
he didn't get on the playoff roster either.
He did not. So the question is that do you have Estime or do you have Tyler Bidet? That's the question. And I think that's where my coaching staff is kind of thinking about this too. And then as the fourth running back, because I do think the Broncos are going to be a heavy run team this year. And I also think that special teams will be factored into the running back room as well. And then the question is it Blake Watson or Jaleel McLaughlin? And so I think you end up with kind of those. No, but I think you have those four running backs at the back end, or at least on the question mark, because Blake Watson and McLaughlin are effectively the same style of running back. They're kind of that change of pace, pass catching, former wide receiver type. So those two are basically the same type of running back. And then you have Tyler Bidet and Estime, which are also very similar running backs as well. And so I think that's where the math is going to be from my Denver Broncos. And last but not least, my Denver Broncos, as the season went on, were god-awful at running the football. And Estime was part of that running back room who did not do well. So, Jack, you were talking about how your team, we'll say, did worse. Fine, fair enough. But my team did not do particularly well at the end of the season either. And so that is why we ended up with two brand new running backs on the roster, including seeking out and obtaining J.K. Dobbins for my team. So that's where I'm at with those guys on the offensive side. I have, just to reiterate, my number one and number two, Alex Forsyth, center exclusively, center number two on the roster. Certainly at the kind of tail end of his potential Broncos career if he does not show out. And a surprise, I think, to most viewers of the podcast here, as I have Cortland Sutton on that list as well, simply because he's
Money.
in that contract year, and potentially might be financially.
Wide receivers are
not
getting
possible
paid,
for us.
crazy type of money. That's for sure. Paid crazy money. And you know what? I want to ask the chat, because I know as a Notre Dame fan, and I know Sacktown Raider Mike's a Raider fan. I know Nabman's a Raider fan. So based on what, I said, with Zeus and Lobby, if one of those guys were to go, and if the Broncos do let Estime go, put in the chat, would you guys be interested in actually bringing him in onto this Raider squad? I'm curious what people will say about that.
I don't think the Broncos would ever trade somebody.
Oh, not trade him. I don't think they would trade for him. I don't think the Raiders would trade for him to give up draft capital. But if they were to let him go, that would be an interesting thing, because I think he'd be better than Zeus or Zamir. So
no, see, I think Estime would have trade partners even with kind of like late round or even late mid round draft picks. I think there's going to be enough teams that will want a young guy with potential.
I think the most you'd get for him is
6th or 7th.
Yeah, I say the most I think you'll get is a 7th. He was a 5th rounder, so I don't think you're going to get more.
Yeah, I think it'll be a 6th or 7th, or maybe a 6th round or a 7th round pick swap or something like that. And if you're not going to keep him on your roster, that's better than nothing. So you're going to take that, right? And then I think that there's going to be too many after preseason. At least 1 or 2 teams are going to lose their running back, or a decent running back on their roster that they were counting on to be there. And that's just a fact. Like it is absolutely going to happen. And then as a result, there will be a market for a guy like Estime, and perhaps even Zeus, for example, where some other team is going to be like, I think I can make something of him. And as you stated, Jack, I think Estime is going to have the bigger market than a guy like Zeus.
Hey, Raiders Mama, did you do that under Captain Jack's channel? If you did, I will let him know. So thank you for becoming a member. And Gord, salute, brother. Good to see you here, man.
That was Captain Jack's channel.
I will let Captain know that he's got a new member.
Raider
Awesome.
Mama.
So that's where I'm at with the Denver Broncos on offense. Curious as to your thoughts down below in the chat. With that, we are going to go over to you, DZ, and talk about the defense.
So I got 2 guys on the defense that are, kind of qualify for this make it or break it. My first guy might be a little premature for me to put him on here, but they drafted him to take over. And first guy I'm going to talk about it still kind of was my favorite pick of last year's draft, and that's Junior Colson, the middle linebacker out of Michigan. 3rd round pick. Some regarded him as the toughest player in the draft. Well, 2 years ago, played on that championship team with a cast on one hand, a club, and a shoulder sling on the other, or whatever. And I'll get into why I'm saying this. 6'3", 247 pounds, was, ranked as a number 2 or 3 linebacker coming out in that draft. This guy really didn't do anything last season. He played 11 games, and, his contribution was, it wasn't even a factor. And he was so regarded, and he was one of my favorite picks, is because he was the captain of that Michigan defense, and that whole Michigan, philosophy and mentality and the defensive coordinator came over to LA. So, I was assuming, assume you make an ass out of you and me, right? That he would be the green dot guy. He'd come in, he's going to know this defense, he's going to be able to help everybody. And, this guy came into camp, and then all of a sudden, like, there's like, where's Junior Colson? Where's Junior Colson? Like, because usually when camp starts, everybody's trying to see who's got the bugs and who's got the nicks and whatever. And we didn't see him for a while, and they kept just like a personal illness or whatever. And, come to find out, he had an appendectomy, right? In camp, had to get his appendix removed. And then week 2, has a hamstring injury, misses games 3 and 4. And then week 9, went on IR with a ankle injury. And it's just, he couldn't have had the roughest start.
Right. It was a rookie, so you got to get a break.
Right. So I put him on here because if it doesn't happen this season, like, I'm looking at 2026, I'm like, he's supposed to pair, like, when I say supposed to, we know it's just how me as a fan thinking about it, like him paired up with Diane Hanley, another up-and-coming star in the Chargers in that linebacker room. The guys behind him, Troy Dye, Denzel Perryman, Jack, Denzel. These guys are all on expiring contracts and such. And, so he's supposed to take that next leap. And it's like, is this going to be his rookie year, or is this going to be his sophomore year? How's this going to play out for him? And I'm rooting for him big time. This guy's got a really incredible story. He was adopted out of Haiti, by a nice family, raised here in the States. Dude's just an animal, and I've been rooting for him, but it's just so unfortunate. And the reason I put him on the make it break it is because, if he doesn't pan out, you're like, now you're out looking for another linebacker, another middle linebacker. And yeah, you can get them, right? Like, middle linebackers are kind of I don't want to say easy free agent, but you can get them. It's just one of those things. It's like, we need this to happen, especially with our D coordinator. And rumors are this D coordinator that we have is going to probably be a head coach somewhere sooner than later. So I'd like to have this all come together before he leaves, and I hope it's not next season. I hope he sticks around, to be honest with you. He barely played, but look, like I said, appendectomy, hamstring.
That's why you got to throw out
ankle.
That's why you got to throw out the season. It's like red shirt. Just again, if it's your first season, it's you kind of got to throw it out. Let's see if the kid can stay healthy. I just think that's really early. And Matt Marinovich, I like what you said about Estimé too. Just to answer the chat. Estimé had over 1,300 yards, 23 touchdowns with Notre Dame. It's too early to let him go. I agree, on that one. And Matt, the next take you had, that's what we're talking about, bro. Sorry to jump in, but I want to answer the chat.
The NFL stands for something, not for long, Jack. And It's all about what have you done for me lately.
Yep.
So if you cannot come in, contribute, year 1, year 2, we said earlier in the show, like, if you're not doing anything in year 3, every year there's a draft and there's free agency. This guy has to hit. He's got to make an impact this season, in my opinion. And look, maybe since he came from Michigan and, played with Harbaugh, maybe that buys him some time, but, this is his season, and I'm rooting for him. But look, I said it earlier, I care about wins now. So I got to take my feelings out of this with these players, and it's like, put up or shut up, man. So that's Junior. Root for you, Junior Colson. My second guy is kind of a surprise to, if other Charger fans looking at this. It's Alohi Gilman. He's on his last year of his deal, 27-year-old safety, 6th round out of Notre Dame. A lot of Notre Dames during the Tom Telesco era. He really loved the Fighting Irish players. And he just missed so much time last season with injuries. But when he's on the field healthy, playing that free safety position and Derwin James can be up in the box and that strong safety. They play really well together. It's just I like the guy and he can make some plays, but last season he just missed too much time, especially with his new regime. And they signed Elijah Molden, who I love. I'm so happy. They brought him in last season, and they extended him. He was the first player, I believe, the Chargers extended. I gave him a 3-year deal. And yeah, he's technically a defensive back, but I can see him taking that free safety position. But the Chargers also drafted a guy in the 7th round, R.J. Mickens, out of Clemson in the 6th round, same round as Lohi. And, he's a son of NFL cornerback Ray Mickens, who played for the Jets, the Browns, the Pats. Really good 2024 season out of Clemson. So for Lohi, if he wants to stay with the Chargers or, say, potential get himself a nice contract somewhere else, he's got to put up this season. And, I'm rooting for him. Like, if he, in my opinion, like, I'm not going to be upset if he goes somewhere else, but I'd like him to contribute this season, right? Because I don't think RJ's ready to take his spot this season as a rook, so rooting for him. And I have an honorable mention, and that's Scott Matlock. And I think we talked about this on last week's show or 2 weeks ago on the defensive side of the ball. He was a guy that played more snaps as a fullback last season than he did as a D tackle, right? And then he talked about, hey, I want to be a Pro Bowl D tackle. I want to be I want to shift my, play to the defensive side because that's where the money's at. There's no money being a fullback in this league, man, unfortunately. I think there's 8 fullbacks in the league. Broncos have a fullback, Chargers have a fullback, and I don't know about the Raiders or Chiefs. If you guys do, let me know. But so the thing is if that doesn't pan out for him, there's a guy that they brought in at UDFA, I mentioned before, Steve O'Klotz, that we're all juicing for these pads to come on to see this guy play because, this guy's film is pretty cool watching him as a fullback. So we'll see if Scott can, because the additions they brought in the D line, it's going to be tough for him to make the rotation. I mean, teams usually carry 6 D linemen, and then, he's going to go from a starter to maybe riding the practice bench this year or potentially cut. It's going to be pretty tough for him. But yeah, those are my 2 guys on the defensive side. There's caveats to both of them, but it is what it is. I mean, I could have gone with some other players. I just know that some were brought in on for their roles, fill-in players.
Well, Gilman, I've seen he's looking to make him $3.5 million, and this is the last year of his contract too. So,
yeah, it's a good guy, man. Good guy. Just got banged up too much, man. So he's a heck of a player. He's got the right head on his shoulders. So it's just, like I said, when he's healthy, he's a really good free safety to have back there. Just, you can't, there's a thing this new regime has. Jim Harbaugh's a big fan of Ted Lasso. You remember that show?
Yeah.
So one of the things is they have this acronym, TED, and it's there every day. And we saw it by some of the departures of last season and whatever. They don't want players who miss games. It had to have been like a really good reason for you to miss games, but they want guys that play all 17 games. Whether, and I can see them letting it go like really good players, say played 8 games or something. I could see them saying, all right, see you later, right?
well, yeah, it makes sense if he's always hurt. The last year of his contract, I think that's a great, person to choose and either put up or shut up, because if you can't stay on the field, you're going to be gone. Like, look at like that. Oh my God, what's the name of that guy from the Green Bay Packers? All-Pro defensive back. Yeah, Jameer Alexander. I mean, he played only 7 games, each of the last 2 seasons. It's like If you can't be on the field, then we can't use you. It's like, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. And I mean, depth is key, right? Like, I think I saw somebody talking about the Chargers, like, we have a lot of cap next season. I think a lot of teams have a lot of cap, and I saw some fans are like, it's not like they did much with it this season. And I'm like, you're kind of wrong, because they kind of brought in depth players. They didn't bring any fancy names in, but they brought in a lot of vets to fill roles, to kind of mix with these rookies they're bringing in. So I like it. It's definitely a different approach that I've been used to for the last decade with Tom Telesco. I'm glad you guys, as Raider fans, you guys only dealt with it 1 year. He did really well for you guys in the draft, I will have to admit. But
he did bring over the injury bug, so that's the curse of Tom Telesco. Tom, if you get some players that you're on the GM, you're going to get hurt, and you do have a lot of salary cap next year. I don't know if you knew this, but right now you're sitting on like $108 million.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I'm like, they still have to pay Rashawn Slater. They're still working on that. And I think no second-round picks are signed yet, right?
Only the first two. Because that's the whole problem, is that they got fully guaranteed contracts. Yeah, so, of course, it makes sense for all the other second-rounders with their agents to try to get the same type of guaranteed money, which really has never been, done before in a way of second-rounders getting fully guaranteed contracts. That's why no second-rounders have been signed.
So right now, I think the Chargers have two guys. It's Trey Harris, our second-round pick, the wide receiver everybody's excited about, and then Rashawn Slater, everybody's expecting him to get paid. So usually July is when they do deals in LA, so hopefully we see that.
I can't see you guys even, like, why would you do Slater dirty by not getting him an appropriate? It makes no sense.
Exactly. I think we said this a long time ago on some shows. There's rumors, divorce and whatnot and whatever. But look, what's cool about him, he's trying to get a deal. He went out there, I think it was the mandatory whatever. There was a couple days he went out and practiced and kept himself in shape, and he even he had to pass a physical, right? Coming back because he missed some of the days or whatever. He was working out back home in Texas, and he told Ben Herbert, it's too easy. And Ben Herbert, the strength and conditioning guy for the Chargers that was at Michigan, and I think before that at Arkansas, he's a savage. He's a psycho. So it's good to hear that he came into shape, ready to rock and roll. So they need to pay the guy. I hope they pay the guy. I expect them to pay the guy, but I'm a big fan.
Well,
interesting fun fact.
He's in Texas. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But kind of a fun fact. I'm not looking at over the cap, which I don't know if I agree with this. They said they have the Raiders at like $90 million next year. Well, I don't think they're counting in there. If they were to roll over to $36 million now, you got to add that on top of it. So I don't think they're counting. I'm kind of curious where.
No, they're not rolling over.
Yeah, it's got to be a non-rollover. And then Richie, for your team, 2026 again with at 50 million. Now I'm really kind of curious to see where Kansas City, because I haven't looked at anything in Kansas City in a while, and we haven't talked about Kansas City. So when I find it, I'll let you guys know on that one. There we go. There's
Jack,
Kansas City.
Let's go right into the Raiders. We got a bunch of Raiders fans in the chat as always. So we'll go ahead we will go ahead and have you discuss now your Raiders two guys and maybe an honorable mention or two if you have them.
And
on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, scroll up. Post Matt Marinovich post. We are absolutely 100% on the same page on this. And by the way, right now, looking at over the cap, Kansas City is negative $37 million. Love it. So this is actually my number one player. And Matt brought it up. And this is who I was going to lead off with. It's an easy one. It's Tyree Wilson. I mean, everything about from day one didn't sit well with Raider Nation with this kid. I mean, he's what D said earlier, like, man, he's a huge dude. I mean, he's like 6'5", 285, just ripped, strapping, type player. And, they could have had Jalen Carter at the same pick.
Damn.
Right? That's what the nation feels like. Oh, yeah, we could have had Jalen Carter. Then we probably didn't need to do Christian Wilkins and spend $110 million there, and we could have Jalen Carter, who's on the field and not off the field. And then like what you talked about is injuries. He, came into the NFL with a foot injury, which kept him sidelined for basically the whole year. So he got redshirted. So you're kind of thinking year 2 when he comes in that, hey, he's the number 7 pick overall. He's a big, young, strapping kid.
Jack, I wanted him in LA too, by the way.
Well, I think, I liked him, but I didn't like him more than Jalen Carter. That's who I was kind of like this year. I wanted Mason Graham. I'm like, kind of like you guys. I want to build from the inside, go out. So, yeah, and then he gets out there and you look at him, against, offensive linemen that are 350 pounds and, they snap the ball and he's the slowest guy on the entire offensive line. And he doesn't have any moves. He's got one move. It's a bull rush move. So since he's a first-round draft pick, he was number 7 overall. And it's like you look at, again, he's in the last year of his rookie deal, but, the Raiders could pick up a 5th-year option on it. It's like what Richie said for Courtland Sutton. I don't think I want to spend the money, on that. I mean, the kid's already making this year, he's making, rounding it up, okay? $8 million. Do I see the value of him even at $8 million? No, I just don't see that value. And I don't think anyone will disagree with me. I mean, when you're the number 7 pick overall, PFF ratings is a 66.7. Pass rush, when you're supposed to be a defensive end, right, is actually below the league average at 57.2. And his run defense is better because he's a big dude at 72.4. And it's like you look at his individual rankings. I mean, they're besides forced fumbles, which
Jack,
he's got 1. It's like he doesn't rank anywhere in like the top 50 or top 60 in the entire league. And you're looking at him coming in and going, man, do we want to give this kid a 5th-year option?
Hey, Jack, can you read Raider Shield's comment? Because I have something about that.
All right, Nav, salute, brother. Hey, if Tyree can't move inside, he's gone, but still on a rookie contract, cheap. Well, I don't know about $8 million being cheap, but on roster 53 will be coveted. That's nasty. Work there to figure him out. His best is to move inside in the 3-4. But now we don't play the 3-4. We play the 4-3. So, but there is talk about going 5 defensive linemen this year, though, too. So then I would think they would also move him in. And I think Nav will agree with this. I think, he actually plays better on the inside. Jack, how many beers am I behind? No, dude, you're way ahead of me. You're pouring like 3 or 4 beers in 1 cup, Kona.
Hey, Jack, the reason I had you read Raider Shields is he's cooking with something here, because you talked about his get off move, right? So the Chargers last year also drafted a guy, and they said in the 4th round, Justin Boygby out of Alabama, who is a prototypical DN who looks just like you guys are describing Tyree Wilson. Well, their whole deal is they had him gain weight, and they're trying to project him to push on the inside. So what Nav is saying, if they can do that with Tyree, you might be cooking with some gas there. If you can move these guys who played a DN style, but if you're sticking with that 4-3 defense, then I don't know, because you're kind of just your edge guy is now going in, but we'll see.
That's what they did last year. DZ, they did move him inside. They did that on purpose because, there's more hand movement when you're playing a D tackle spot. So Patrick Graham wanted him to learn how to, fend off the hands. So whenever he does go outside, well, then he's got more education on how to use his hands. Because when you're a big dude like that in college, and all you're learning is one move, which is the bull rush,
Right.
that doesn't work in the NFL. You got to have all the different moves if you're playing on the edge.
There's only a few players that can do the bull rush in the NFL. Like, there's only a few, right?
Yeah.
Right. You got to like switch it up. You got to change it up. You just can't rely on that. And especially when you're the slowest guy off the line and you give that half a second to that quarterback and all you got is a bull rush, well, you're not going to be successful. And
he needs to put on weight.
Well, for an edge rusher, 285.
That's almost too heavy as an edge rusher, 285. So if he's at 285 now,
No, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I mean. His listed position on Pro Football Reference and on the football sites, he's listed at 6'6", 275. At 275, that is too heavy for an edge. That he weighs too much to go outside.
You kind of want to see it like
him to come inside though.
250, 260 is a good edge weight. I've seen him on lighter.
That's 15. That's 15.
But he is 6'6". But he is 6'6", though. But look, there's a key word that they said. So he is 6'6". Usually edges are like anywhere from 6'2", 6'4". He is a little bit taller. But a key thing is that Jack said and Nav said is, well, I don't know if Nav said it, he doesn't have that get off. He doesn't have that initial get off. So for the edge. So that extra weight with that size, man, if they can do it, and Jack, they might be patient with him. Graham might be patient with him. Have him put on that weight. Get him to about 310, 305. Get him on the inside next season. And, because if he's got that talent, it's going to show up. And that's what I'm hoping with what they're doing in LA. I'm seeing it more because not many teams run DNs in the league. They're these hybrid edge guys. And I hate saying that, but I mean, I don't even want to say that because everybody does have a DN technically, but they're like this new term outside linebacker edge or whatever. But it's like, I think like, yeah, I agree, but I think I like what Nav's saying. Kick him in the inside, give it a shot. But, if he doesn't have the speed for it.
Yeah, he's a part of the NASCAR package for sure on the inside. That's a given. And, Matt Marinovich, made a great comment. We can definitely probably see that. Tyree, again, replacing, Wilkins at D tackle. I mean, that is definitely a possibility if Wilkins is going to be out for an extended period of time.
Yeah, but he's got to put on weight.
Yeah, but then also,
weight.
And then there's another thing, Matt, I love your optimism, but it's a whole other beast when you get down inside like that. It is, you have now center and guards coming at your ass, and the whole point of being a D tackle is to keep these shoulders square as hell, and your eyes up, and it's a whole different ball game. So it's easier said than done, kicking them inside. That's why it's like a project kind of thing. If they can do it, man, my hat's off to them because.
And I also want to just add to this. I agree, Raider Shield family, you're right. Max and Malcolm are both 255. Max is listed at 6'5", 255. Max Crosby seems like he's got his body on point, like as in he probably doesn't even go up 2 pounds at any given time. And he's got a wingspan. He's got a wingspan on him, right? Yeah,
wingspan. Yeah. And it pisses me off that his nickname's the Condor because I have a condor on my back, and I'm like, ah. But
I love it. You're a closet Raider fan, he said.
But here's Raider Shield family. What you're missing here is Max Crosby's 255, and he's only an inch shorter than Wilkins. Tyree. Sorry, he's only an inch shorter than Tyree. Tyree is listed at 275, and Crosby's listed at 255. Literally, that's exactly the point that DZ and I are making here, right? Which is Tyree is almost in this like weird tweener weight class.
tweener.
which doesn't suit anybody, including himself, at all. He needs to gain like 20 pounds or more. Actually, ideally, he needs to gain almost 30 pounds.
He almost fits the Broncos D-line style, though, Richie. Size-wise, you guys seem to play a little lighter, a little more speed and finesse stunts and things like that.
Yeah, but Tyree's not fast.
He doesn't have the speed and finesse. So what he really needs to do is he needs to learn to carry more weight and keep up his physical fitness while gaining that weight. And then he needs to start learning the squaring of shoulders, dropping his base. He needs to make sure that he can actually carry weight on his base and not just through his midsection. They need to try to make sure that his lower base can actually fit that extra weight so that he can then anchor himself. He's at exactly as you said earlier in the show here. Guards and centers, the best of them in the business, like across the board, most of them carry their weight, not all the time, but for the most part, through the lower part of their midsection and in their ass end, basically.
Yeah, they got the dump truck.
Yeah,
the badonkadonk.
Yeah.
Crazy, for you guys, I know a lot of Raider fans probably have seen this. What's crazy is they had a picture in training camp last year, with Tyree, with John Jenkins and Max Crosby. And, John Jenkins was their nose tackle last year. He was like 327 pounds. And Tyree, again, I know he's taller, but his shoulders were broader. Like Jenkins must have carried more in his lower body than his upper body. He just looked bigger than all of them. So it's kind of weird, seeing that, even though that's almost a 50-pound differential. So maybe he needs to get stronger in his lower body, and he definitely needs to find a twitch because he definitely hasn't shown that. So that is definitely my number one, and that's an obvious one. If I was the Raiders, unless he's like the pure put up, shut up, get it done, you gone. Raider Nation, if he doesn't show it, we all know that we don't want him back. He was like, goodbye. We're not going to pay you that type of money. When we can get other guys that can come in to play and play for a whole lot less, especially when you got like a Mountain Kuntz. We got him to a 1-year deal. He missed a whole regular season. And before he got hurt, he had 8 sacks in 9 games before he got hurt. In preseason, he got hurt. He's coming back. He's like on a cheaper deal for a defensive end for what he did for those 9 games. And they signed him for $12 million. And he definitely has already said he wants to stay with the Raiders. So they'll have a pretty good chance to re-sign him. And then, of course, are you going to re-sign a Mountain Kuntz, or are you going to re-sign a Tyree Wilson, who hasn't shown anything at the same position? And you're going to pay that to Tyree
Jack,
for a backup?
Jack, one other thing to mention there, you were bringing up a comment or a question just about his 8 mil. I agree, by the way. It's a good point. You're talking about his salary. To give you an idea, the average interior defensive lineman salary, which is kind of what you would be looking at to pay a guy like Wilson, the average is between 15 to 20 in that kind of ballpark for kind of an average-ish type guy on the interior defensive line for the most part, unless you get a guy on like a prove-it deal. And so $8 million is actually quite reasonable.
Well, it's a rookie contract. That's the whole thing. I don't think the Raider Nation, would you guys pay $8 million to Tyree, next year?
Well, the point being is that as long as you get modest production from him, the question is, are you going to be able to bring in someone at $8 million that's going to give you better production than him for that $8 million, salary cap hit? I'm not sure you will, because I think an $8 million kind of vet minimum, whatever it may be for that position, I'm not convinced that you're going to get someone who's going to be more productive than a young potential guy like him, is my point. I'm not saying that he's a great player and you want to use that roster spot, because I'm sure you'd rather draft someone who's got an even higher upside, who might be even modestly as productive. So that's a different can of worms. But my point is that $8 million, when you look at the average, I did a complete analysis here while you were talking. is the range is typically between 15 to 20, and the upper tier of that group is in the 30s.
Yeah, and Matt Marinovic, I agree. Same thing as Clee Farrell. The same thing. It's like the same player, right? You know, Matt, Clee, top 10 pick, Tyree, top 10 pick. They're both were tweeners. You know, you got to pay him a lot of money. Do I want to pay him a lot of money when I got a Malcolm Kuntz? I'd rather pay over him. Right now, no. He can change all our minds if he shows up and changes everything about himself and proves to the nation that, you know, hey, I am worthy of this pick. But he has not lived up to the billing. And, you know, I even unrestricted free agent Jaw Joyner, the Raiders got. So a lot of people, I don't know why he fell, but I've heard, you know, a lot of stuff that he was actually rated a bottom end 5th rounder, top end 6th rounder. I'm not saying those guys are always going to pan out, but, you know, he's one of the guys I see him making the squad. Yeah, I just wish the Raiders would have kept Chase on. Then it would have been purely obvious, because Chase on really did a good job for us.
How old's Kuntz? Do you know on the top of your head?
What?
How old is Kuntz? Do you know on the top of your head?
So he's coming out of his rookie deal. I can look it up, but he's coming out of his rookie deal. So
okay, yeah, man, that's the guy you guys want to keep.
Yeah, he just came out of his rookie deal, but since he missed the whole last season, and he was a 3rd round draft pick, you know, actually went to the same school as Khalil Mack, which is kind of interesting, and played like the same position. But yeah, so this is really then his 5th year.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I'm a big fan of Kuntz. I think that's a guy. Okay, yeah. So he's still young. That's a guy you guys keep around. And then Piano Man, I'd be surprised if the Chargers defense stayed in the top 10 when this season's all said and done, due to the schedule. Because last season they still got punked by really good teams. If you guys don't remember the Bucs game, they ran all over us. You know, now that OC's in Houston, we're playing Houston. So there's a lot of really good teams. I'd be surprised if the Chargers defense stays in the top 10, but I still think if they can hover, you know, above that 15 mark, I'll be happy, but it's going to be really tough, especially with this schedule we got coming in this season.
So we're in the...
And Victor, I agree.
Go ahead.
I got one more.
I agree. So, go ahead.
So Matt Marinovic, actually, again, you read my mind earlier. It's like, and again, it's a linebacker that they 5th round draft pick out of Ohio State, and it's Tommy Eichenberg. So with Eichenberg, the problem is it's just the players that they brought in. And you got the guy from the Steelers. I always forget his name, but he's going to be our middle linebacker. Then you bring in Pratt, who's probably going to be the best linebacker on the squad from Cleveland. And they got him on a good deal. He had a 3-year, $21 million contract, and I think they got him for like 5, if I'm correct. And then you got, you know, the ex-All-Pro Devin White on the cheapest contract. I mean, I couldn't believe looking up his contract.
The Bengals.
Yeah, the Bengals. What did I say?
Cleveland Browns.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It is. You're right. It's Cincinnati. I apologize. That's what I was thinking. Well, they were one time, long time ago. I'm old.
What guy are you talking about from the Steelers, Jack? Not Gainer, right?
No. Gainer's already on there. Give me
Jones.
No, give me a.
Lindenberg. Cody Lindenberg.
No, Lindenberg was a draft pick.
Dude, I'm like, what? Jermaine Pratt? That guy
was Cincinnati.
That's Cincinnati. That's a hell of a pickup. I love that pickup by you guys. Jalen Smith.
Hold on, I always forget his name. I don't know why. I always have a hard time remembering.
Jalen Walker. Devin White.
Landon Roberts is who they got from the Steelers. And Devin White is they got from Tampa, or he was in Tampa when he was all pro, and then he's kind of bounced around a little bit.
Dude, you guys low key, Jack, sorry, you guys low key got 2 really good guys. If they pan out for that linebacker room, like, holy hell, like, wow, you guys could have a stud linebacking core if they work out. And that's Devin, and that's the guy from the Bengals. Damn,
Right.
like, if Luke can whip them in shape, get him to buy into the Raider way kind of thing, especially with Pete, that's gonna be pretty nasty.
Well, what's an interesting, fact on this is that, again, I love, and you guys know this, and all Raider Nation knows this, I love, Robert Spillane. I really like, and I was not happy when after Spycheck says, I don't let good players walk. I just don't let good players walk. And then he let him walk. And, I'm like questioning, like, well, you said you're not going to let good players walk. He's a good player. He's been outstanding for the Raiders since he's come here. Essentially, he's gotten better every single year. So when I saw that contract that he got, it was 3 years, $33 million, and like $4 million in incentives.
Yeah, but do you think it takes two, right? You think he might have said, "Hey, man, I want to go check out what Vrabel has to offer"?
Well, I don't think they just would match he went out there and tested the free agency market, and the Raiders just said they're not going to match it. But when you bring in a Landon Roberts, Devin White, and Pratt, and it's like you're saving $2 million. So they got all three of those guys for what they paid less for Spillane. And Richie, no, Pratt is not the replacement. It's Landon Roberts is going to be the middle linebacker, and Pratt is going to end up playing your weak side linebacker. Is what they're going to end up doing. But then my favorite guy, we've talked about breakout players, right? And he's probably my favorite linebacker on this team is Amari Gaynor. I mean, that guy's a pure off-ball linebacker, 6'3", like 236. He moves well. Man, he was like the MVP, in training camp. So, I mean,
you've been wanting one really bad, Jack. You're like big onto the off-ball because you're like something you feel like you've been missing.
Oh, absolutely. When Kelsey lights you up every single year, I'm tired of getting
bomb right now. I was about to just F it up because I am so sick and effing tired of this he is nothing special, but he does something. I've watched how many highlights has Richie watched, has Jack watched, have I watched, where it's like you see this turd of a dude with, especially if you guys have seen pictures with his part down the middle, like he's living in 1995 right now with Taylor Swift, milk of magnesia, whatever you want to call her. But this guy does nothing special, but somehow he seems to get open 7-8 yards. It's like he has this like force field around him, and there's nothing special about him. They're like, oh, like even if his moves, I'm like, there's other tight ends I feel like that are way better than this guy, but dude, he has this uncanny ability to get open and make plays, and it just boggles my mind, dude. It boggles my effing mind, and I'm sick and tired of it. I cannot wait for him to get out of this league.
Well, do you know what it is? Is he's a former quarterback.
Kelsey?
Yes, he's a former
quarterback.
I
did not know that. I did not know
yeah,
that.
He was.
And so what you get from a guy like that is he thinks like a quarterback does. And so he and Mahomes have this like unspoken thing where like what gives Kelsey that extra elevation that you're so frustrated with, which by the way, I agree.
Dude, it's weird.
No, but it's here. It has nothing like here, let's put it this way. Gronk presented the same way as Kelsey does.
I'm going to kind of clap back just a little bit. Gronk, in my opinion, is probably the best tight end to ever play the game.
I agree with that. Yes,
because Gronk was catching over the shoulder stuff and gnarly stuff and shoving dudes off of him. But I agree with the other part. Like, sure,
the point is that neither of the two guys. Well, Gronk in his prime was way quick for his size. So give credit where credit's due. But what my point is though is that in reality, Gronk and Kelsey, they're not the fastest guys on the field, right? They're just
Colorado Kool-Aid's Nav.
Right.
Well,
But the point
Dude,
is,
why does Matt Marinovich keep taking my takes? God damn it. I love you, brother. That's what I was thinking too.
right.
Richie,
Edelman was a former QB.
you watch highlights. I know you do. I know you're a sadistic dude like I am, like everybody. There's nothing, in my opinion, I see on film that he does anything special. But you're right. He has this effing connection like Gates had with Rivers and like Tony Gonzalez had with Leda and Alex Smith. Oh my God, don't get me started on the Broncos. Never mind. It's just they have this connection, and it's so weird to watch because I'm like looking at my DBs and linebackers. I'm like, what the are you guys doing? Like, just get on his ass because it's always like, oh, here's Kelsey open, 20-yard
Right.
gain. I'm like,
So he knows how to read the defense, you know?
That's exactly it. Rewatch that same film.
Bingo.
That same film.
And quick.
No, it's not only that. It's not only that. He not only knows how to read the defense, but what he also knows to do is to let his other players that are on the offensive side of the ball, he knows what routes they're running, and he knows what the defense has done before. And this is why Kelsey, as the game progresses, this is, insider baseball as you're actually watching the game. Watch the later part of every game that Kelsey plays in. There's a reason why he is most productive in the latter portions of every single game. And he layers everything on like a chessboard and then says, and then here's my chance, where he lets all of the plays develop, and he knows that the far left-hand side of the field, as an example, will be wide open if he does X, Y, and Z, and he just literally just kills it.
I love it when you say Z.
He plays chess, man.
I'm gonna correct myself. Tight ends normally play technically kind of like a slot position, right? They're like that. Usually your slot players, they have to be not only have elite hands, but they have to be able to read defenses extremely well, more so than your X's or your Z's or anything. So it makes sense. Everything you're saying makes 100% sense, Richie. 100%. Yeah. So correcting me, and usually tight ends have to understand, and you're right, they understand leverage, they understand boxing out, things like that. It's just when us fanalists, of the Wild Wild West, when I watch his film, I'm like, how and why? But it makes sense. But it still pisses me off, and I can't stand him. So there's that.
I can't stand him either. It's like, I just, that's the thing. It's like, okay, he's declining. So I know we're getting a little bit off topic, but I like it because there's not a KC host in here. So the thing for them, which is going to be interesting, he's on the last year of his contract, and he's making $17 million for the year. So it's like, oh, what does he retire? Does he stay on another year? Because he's slowing down. We all see the progression. He's slowing down. But, he's making
year by year. He's going year by year at this.
One year by year. But he's making
with a billionaire, by the way, also. He's with a billionaire also. So
the other thing to watch with Kelsey as he's running his routes is, and he's actually, Kelsey may be the one tight end in the league that is benefiting the most from the new league rules.
Oh,
and
thank you.
And that's 100%.
Well, give me a favor, Richie. Tell everyone in the chat what those rules are so they all know.
Well,
because they may not all know.
But the main rule that is, well, first off, there's the fact that it seems like that the refs are being incredibly lenient when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs in terms of play calls and etc. But that aside,
he said it, not me.
Yeah, that aside, but you end up with chop blocks, you end up with contact. So really where Kelsey is winning his routes is the fact that he is able to not
hamstrung the defense, Richie. They're hamstrung the defense on these guys.
You're not allowed to make and maintain contact or have any kind of hand fighting or any of that kind of stuff 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. And where a guy like Kelsey really excels is in that 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, where he's already read the defense because he's a former quarterback, so he has to process very quickly as a former quarterback. And because they're not allowed to touch him, he can do one of two things. Early stages in games, he can basically overplay his hand on purpose and basically sell out to the DBs to force them to play him a certain way. And then in the latter part of the games, which is what I was saying before, is that he then leverages his former play in the early stage of the game to force the DBs and linebackers to bite on certain types of plays because he's going to give them a certain look. And then he basically does the opposite. And he and Mahomes have already spoken the shorthand about what he's going to do and how he's going to do it. And there's a reason why it's annoying. I agree. Trust me, I'm right there with you. Why he's always seems to get open 5, 6, 7, 8 yards. Why is it 10 yards past the line of scrimmage? Well, because they're not allowed to touch him. How did he make that happen? Well, he played chess while everyone else is playing checkers, trying to figure out how to catch up, right? He's basically playing a different game at a different level. And
you can say that about the quarterback as well.
Yeah, and the quarterback is equally as gifted, and you simply just got to give the two credit where credit's due. It is what it is. I hate it. I hope he retires soon because I'm sick of it. But it is what it is. That's exactly why it is what it is.
Well, and then the last part is, for these smaller guys that are trying to cover him, he's still a big boy. You know what I mean? He's 6'5", 245, somewhere in there. And, you can't drop your body. You can't drop your body weight. So if you got a smaller guy trying to cover him, it's a more difficult tackle, and you're going to get more yards out of it. I mean,
so I'm gonna quickly delve into the
we got to do the Broncos
because we gotta get through this. And
okay, so that was the whole thing. So again, I'm just going to finish this. Is that again? You look at the linebackers that they signed. Again, so that puts Eichenberg, kind of on the back end. They may keep him for special teams, but when you got a Landon Roberts, you got Devin White, you got Pratt, you got Amari Gaynor. Those are 4 starters right there. Oh, yeah. Richie, go ahead and read this, brother. Is this on your channel or Cap's?
All right, it's on MHRT. So we got
read it.
First, Spillane will feel the pain week 1 and 2, or week 1. Number 2, Tyree needs to go inside, just push up into the backfield and bat balls. Number 3, Zamir a turd, bye. And then number 4,
S bullets can be drank.
Oh,
silver bullets. Colorado Kool-Aid.
Yeah, Colorado Kool-Aid.
Yeah. And
why do you guys think I'm muting this and walking away? Because I gotta leak the lizard, man. Train the horse.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go through the Broncos stuff quickly. And by the way, Raider Shield, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. I will be shouting you out on X.
That money goes to be fighting socialism in Canada.
Well, thankfully, all proceeds remain in the US of A on the MHRT network.
Keeping this.
I would never allow it to come to my communist country. I mean, Canada. So,
but he wants you to read the last part too, Richie. He wants you to finish it up.
Much love, DZ and Rich. GFY Jack.
Go feel yourself. Go feel yourself up, Jack.
Oh no, it says good for you, brother. That's what it means.
Good for you, Jack.
Okay, so Jack, where I'm from, the F stands for a word that I'm not allowed to repeat with kids in the house.
Starts with a PH.
And then
that is kind of funny.
And then the G stands for go, and then the Y is yourself. So I'm going to go with that as what you mean, which I'm going to say.
No, that's not what it means.
Raiders fan, and that's fine by me. So moving onwards and upwards to my Denver Broncos, where we're going to get right into it. And Raider Shield, I'm going to go back to that and kind of read through anything that I may have missed. I'm going to quickly talk about the defense and the 2 gentlemen that I believe on my team, the Denver Broncos, that are kind of on that cusp there for this season. The first one, I'm just going to go right for the fences, and I'm sure that this is going to shock a fair amount of people. As much as I think this player is potentially a difference maker, if not healthy, he is equally on that cusp of getting kicked to the curb. Dre Greenlaw.
Whoa. Okay. That
Whoa,
makes
you just
sense.
Okay.
signed him.
No.
Now,
Makes 100% sense. I get it.
Now, here's the deal. We got 2 UDFAs that are coming right in the lurch behind him that I think are going to be excellent on the roster, and I think that they could backfill that. Number 2, and here's the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize. He was signed for a 3-year, 4-year deal. At the end of this season, as in at the end of the 2025 season, we have an out. And it's a dead cap. It's a dead cap hit of only $4.35 million for the next year, and that's that.
Ooh.
Wow.
I mean, if you guys weren't owned by the Waltons, I would be concerned, but that's
chump change. Like that's chump change.
They wipe their ass with that every day.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So this is the point, right? Which is, Dre Greenlaw is in that kind of interesting block there, which is his deal is constructed where at the end of this season they can kick him to the curb and have a very low cap hit, especially considering we've been eating like 80 million or something stupid of Russell Wilson's contract, and then 35 million of that is this year as well. So it's not like we're not used to having to carry that kind of dead cap, which is not something to be proud of, by the way, but it's a fact. And then, but 4.3 million is actually a
for his caliber, that's
number.
low.
Yeah, a modest number to accept for a guy that you sign for such a long-term deal. And if he gets hurt or doesn't stay healthy or whatever the case may be, that's a reasonable out for you as a team in order to move on. So he is my number one guy that I have on that cusp. Number one.
Man, I was so pissed when you guys got him. I was so pissed. He's so good. Hey, Willie Wayne, salute, brother. But man, I'm looking at over the cap, and you're right, dude. That's crazy. You're saving $6.8 million if that were to happen next year.
I know I'm right. That's why I said it.
I had to look it
up. So he's number one. Number 2 is PJ Locke. PJ Locke was our starting safety. He's going to be replaced by Hufanga. You have Brandon Jones and you have Hufanga. They're going to be our starting safeties this year. PJ Locke would be kind of number 3 potentially in that room. I think that PJ Locke, if he doesn't really show out this year, we might try to trade him for like a 6th or a 7th or something like that to get him off the roster, or we might just outright cut him if he doesn't show out. I think we're going to try to maybe look for, perusing practice squads and that sort of thing, and maybe other team cuts. We might be bringing in someone, and that will have PJ Locke, I believe, kind of be on the outside looking in. Ultimately, I think our team is looking for a guy that is better suited in coverage and also has the physicality to work behind and learn from Hufanga and Jones. In my opinion, PJ Locke did not show that he could be that guy for our team. As much as he's a great dude, seems like a great guy, and frankly, given the fact that he was brought in as, if I'm not mistaken, a UDFA or a very late round draft pick, I have to double check, but it's something in that range for my Denver Broncos. He has already well exceeded kind of where he was brought into the team on as a prospect for my Denver Broncos. And so, good for him. He played a starting role last year. He was the one that got burnt a lot. He was the one that had passes thrown over him. He was the one that was picked on. He was the issue. That's why Hufanga was brought in for my Denver Broncos. So anyways, that's where I'm at with.
Those are really good picks. I'm surprised about the Greenlaw, but when you said it, as soon as it came out of your mouth, it made 100% sense.
Right.
Yeah, if you can't stay healthy.
He's also on my list, though. He's also on my list for the number one guy that could completely turn the defense around. That's how bizarre he is as a player.
We don't need your defense to turn anything else around. They can just
your defense is good enough.
I'm saying, dude, because Hufanga and Greenlaw, those are some crazy pickups when they're oh geez,
and for reasonable contracts.
Yeah,
not only were they good pickups, but they were reasonable contracts.
I hope you're not driving, hurrah. I hope you're in your house, okay, dude. Like
Yeah,
Uber
Piano
is
man, be safe, brother.
And
Uber's
guys,
your friend.
yeah, and guys, I had one other name just because he's on special teams, so he's neither offense
Honorable
or
mention.
defense. Honorable mention. I have Jeremy Crawshaw, who is a late round draft pick for my Denver Broncos, because the draft capital put into him was not like super high in the draft. But the punter is such a critical position on the team.
Oh, okay.
In terms of, can you pin guys back? Can you ensure better field position or worse field position rather for your opponent? Those are such big deals for every team.
Hang
that
time
you need to
and pinning them down. There's
accuracy
two things.
and accuracy.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
accuracy, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's why I have Crawshaw on my list as well. Not necessarily because I think he's at risk of getting cut or not making the roster or anything like that, or even next year not being on the roster. It's just he's an unknown. He's a rookie. He's definitely like inside track of being the number one dude, and that's great. But if he doesn't do all of the things, the punter is such a disposable position if you're not great that I could see him just being kicked to the curb, moved on from, and us going after someone else. You know, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and that's it.
So I've been wanting to say this. Wait, pause. I've been wanting to say this now for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. So the Raiders, again, I said I wanted to talk about punter. You guys saw it in our private chat. The Raiders, for you guys, the Raiders all know this, but they re-signed AJ Cole to the biggest contract ever for a punter. $15.8 million for a 4-year deal. 3-time All-Pro, 3-time Pro, 48.6 all-time record for distance. So he's breaking. There's only one punter in the Hall of Fame, and he's a Raider, and that's Ray Guy. And then you have another Raiders punter in Shane Leckler who broke his records. He's not in the Hall of Fame. And right now you got AJ Cole is on his way. If he continues on the same thing, he's going to be the number one punter in NFL history. So I just wanted to get that out there. I've been wanting to get out there for a few weeks now. So
I know you have.
Congratulations.
You've been itching at that for a while, Jack. I'm glad you got your punter stuff out.
The punter is such it's a critical position on the roster. It goes completely overlooked. And when you have a bad punter, your team sucks. Right?
Our punter is like a Timo version of Justin Herbert. If Justin Herbert had a lookalike, he is the Timo version of Justin Herbert. And it's like every game he's either hang times elite or he's kicking it like to kingdom come. But yeah, man, I'm glad you, Richie, and I'm glad Jack brought it up. Punter is way overlooked. Like, other than that, it'd probably be long snapper, right? Like, long snapper and punter go hand in hand. It's a position we don't think about and we take for granted. But they pin defenses back, especially, if they know how to move that ball. That's why I kind of miss the Australian punters the Chargers used to have back in the day. They were elite, dude. These guys could boot a ball, but man, punters.
So that's really all we got for the show today. We are certainly nearing the end there, and
what was that?
I have no idea.
What do you got in your hand, Jack? Oh,
cigarette.
I thought you were making a sound.
So anyways,
no, I was wondering where that sound came from. That's got to be from you, DZ.
It's not me.
It's not me. I'm on my cell phone, right?
Hands up here.
Someone's got some 80s music I just heard in the background. Anywho, that was a great show. I think we covered a lot of ground there. This is really like a low-key thing to really look forward. Now, I'm gonna push back on the chat and everyone else. Start thinking about guys like this that are on other teams that may not fit another team that might fit yours, because these are the types of players that other teams will go after as part of the roster cut down deadlines, and will often make the 53-man roster and fill out the back end of a lot of people's rosters with potential upside cut players and that kind of stuff. This is really what happens in a lot of the roster cut downs and stuff. Is the guys that we're talking about, Zamir White may not work out for the Raiders, but guess what? You cut him outright, and he might get picked up by the Bucs, and he might be a perfect running back for the Bucs scheme, and might show out. Right? These are the types of guys that the scouting department, when they do internal scouting in the NFL, they have those short lists of guys to look out for come roster cuts. And guys like we're talking about right now, whether it be at the end of this year or for the roster cut down this year, other teams they're highlighting and red flagging them because they believe that he might work out. Or
Richie, how about some guys that free agents are still available? Mari Cooper, Keenan Allen. Where do these guys go? That's we could do a little fun prediction to see who gets the closest, or can predict some of these remaining guys. Because honestly, I don't understand why these guys are still available, especially with camp less than a month away.
Yeah. Well, anyways, guys, that's gonna do it for the show. Though we're gonna move onwards and upwards. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today on the Wild Wild West. Until next week, where the West side is the best side. Thank you very much. Click those like buttons. Peace.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up.